Turks, TYT.
Yo, Turks, everybody. Ben Mankiewicz, Michael Shore here with you today. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I don't like to overpromise Michael on the show, but I think there's some good stuff, and I'd like to keep the promises today.
You would. Well, you know, it's interesting. Yesterday I did the show with Jank, and he opened up the show and said, "We have a great show." Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he said, "We always say we have a great show." But,
this is just a good show.
okay.
I'm not going to oversell the greatness of it, but we
like
have a lot.
6?
Yeah, it's 6.5.
Okay.
It's like a B- show.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to change whatever you're listening to right now, but I mean, you probably don't need to stay in the driveway. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you can probably go in
yeah.
and see your kids.
Right, and come out in a little while when we're done with this garbage, and then listen to what we really have to say.
All right, so Barack Obama, the president, ordering 1,200 or authorizing 1,200 troops and $500 million, asking for the border, a sort of a nod to Arizona. A lot of reaction to that in Arizona. The presumptive Democratic nominee for governor, the Attorney General Terry Goddard, reacting. John McCain reacting. John McCain, doesn't matter. Anything Barack Obama does, worst decision ever made.
Yeah, right.
The new ultra-conservative John McCain. So we're going to bring you John McCain's reaction and Terry Goddard's reaction. He was on CNN with Rick Sanchez shortly. But the highlight of the show, I don't know, there's so many highlights of the show. Arizona State Senator Russell Pierce, who is what's the word I'm looking for? Racist, a bigot, and a Jew hater, and an idiot. And
is Jew hater not part of racist and bigot? Or you can be a racist but love Jews?
No, I just want to make that clear,
right.
For our Jewish audience who may not care.
Who may have been like, oh, so he's a racist.
Right,
so
exactly.
He's a bigot.
So he's a racist.
So he's a bigot.
Yeah.
Whoa, he's a Jew hater.
Right, so I just want to pull people in that
Yeah.
way. He thinks that teachers with accents in Arizona are illiterate. He doesn't think the 14th Amendment applies, doesn't think people born in the United States, if they're from another land originally, should be citizens. We have a good report from CNN reporter Thelma Gutierrez, who probably ought to be deported, about the Arizona superintendent going after those teachers with accents. And then we're going to get to really as good a soundbite as you're going to get from the American Family Association's Brian Fisher, Michael, who has nothing to do with immigration, but it turns out Adolf Hitler, speaking of Jew haters, right. Adolf Hitler, gay. And everyone around him, gayer.
Really? They were,
yeah.
they were all a bunch of gays.
You know why? Couldn't find anyone except gays to carry out his ruthlessness.
Oh, right, because
only gays.
You'd have to be that far off the charts
right,
to go that far off.
Right, you're going to kill 6 million Jews,
right.
Although that's a little probably an exaggeration. Right. You're going to kill 12 million people? Hard to believe they pulled that off.
Right. And Speer was an architect, which is
right,
kind of
right, just a creative mind.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You're going to kill that many people. You're going to need some gays to do it.
Right.
Straights wouldn't engage in that. So we're going to get to Brian Fisher because that's nothing but fun. But let's start. So what's John McCain, Michael? What has happened politically to John McCain?
Well, John McCain is being challenged from the right by J.D. Hayworth, a former congressman, who is going after him for not being conservative enough, for trying to go toward the middle on immigration specifically, on health care, that he's the great compromiser, that he doesn't represent the conservatism that exists in the state of Arizona, and never did, is what he is saying also. And so what has happened in reaction to the fact that he's being primary challenged, and right now the lead is as small as 5 points in some polls for John McCain in a primary, where you would think, generally speaking, that the former presidential nominee of the party would A, not get challenged, and B, be able to wipe out whoever the challenger was. That's not the case in Arizona, so it's forcing him to the right.
It's a different year.
It is a different year. It is a different year, both literally and figuratively. But you know, what's happening is, in Arizona, it's just happening to a more prominent person. You're seeing it in other states as well, as Ben's just saying. It is a different year. And McCain is now trying to toe this very conservative line where anything that Obama does is wrong. Anything the Democrats propose is wrong. You even see him equivocating on the nomination of Elena Kagan, where he would more likely be someone who kind of grudgingly voted in favor of her.
Maybe not even grudgingly. Maybe
well, maybe not even grudgingly. Maybe out of respect to the institution, and you just have to approve the president. So that's exactly right.
So John McCain, again, Barack Obama, 1,200 troops, $500 million, even some positive reaction from Arizona Republican John Kyle today, even saying, well, that's it's something,
yeah.
And that's good. John McCain, though, in the midst of this primary fight, and can only go everything, and he can't possibly align himself in any way with Barack Obama. Everything to the right, to the right, to the right. Here is John McCain's. Excuse me. Here's John McCain's reaction to the 1,200 troops and the $500 million.
Percent of the Guard, as well as additional $500 million. But it's simply not enough. We need 6,000. We need 3,000 across the border, and additional 3,000 National Guard troops to the Arizona-Mexico border. And, Madam President, I say that because of my many visits to the border, my conversations with the Border Patrol, and the time it will take to train an additional 3,000 troops just for the Arizona-Mexico border.
As I said, the presumptive nominee there in Arizona, the Attorney General Terry Goddard, who things can't be going well at this point because nobody's more popular than Governor Jan Brewer right now. No,
that's true. It's well, when you're listening to McCain there, you're seeing one of the Congress people from Arizona, Gabrielle Giffords, this is what they've been talking about now for a while, that this is the kind of action they want the president to put in there, the Democratic Party wanted, because it would assuage these Republicans. It would say, all right, we know there's a problem, the way you're handling it is wrong, the way we're going to handle it is right. I don't think that there's anything that would have made McCain happy, or publicly happy, because he has to, literally run for the borders on going against J.D. Hayworth. So, in fairness to McCain, which I don't need to give him any fairness, I understand why he's doing this politically. It's ridiculous. It's a joke, but I understand why John McCain himself is doing this.
Remember when we sort of used to like John McCain?
Yeah. Yes, I do sort of remember when we used to like John McCain.
I don't.
Yeah, no, I don't either, and I never loved John McCain. I liked his book. I think and everybody always said, "Hey, he's a hero," but he really, if you read his book, it is a fantastic book and a uniquely American story. I don't like his politics. I've never really liked his politics. I've never bought into a lot of his I guess, reaching across the aisle.
Maverickness?
Yeah, he's mavericity.
Right, all right, that one's better. Yeah, I don't know. I bought into it a little. When I, in 2004, when I, at Turner Classic Movies, we did a segment that I don't know whether we got lucky, and now in 2010, it turned out to have, we picked 3 out of the 4 right guys. We did a segment in sort of politics in the movies, and we talked to 4 politicians, 2 from each party, about their favorite films, their sort of classic films that influenced them. And on the Republican side, we talked to Orrin Hatch. Yeah.
Can I guess the next one?
Who picked To Kill a Mockingbird. We talked to John McCain.
Yeah. Who picked?
Paths of Glory. Right. Great Stanley Kubrick film with Kirk Douglas, a sort of an anti-war film about World War I. And the sort of nonsensical manner of fighting in that war and troops following their leaders blindly.
Right.
And McCain, it's not like I bonded with him in any way, but we talked sort of before he did it a little bit. And his criticism of the Bush administration, well, like getting coffee and eating a donut, was profound.
Yeah.
And enormous. And and just sort of clearly authentic at that point.
Yeah.
About the foolishness of Iraq and the foolishness of the manner in which Republicans were treating Democrats too.
Yeah.
About how this is a gigantic mistake. I mean, we're not going to be in power forever.
Right. I buy that it was authentic, and that, but I also think, again, he was doing a little bit of what he's doing now. He realized as he was posturing to become the nominee of his party, that with the unpopularity of the sitting president at that time, that he had to distance himself from that president in a way as well.
Sure, it didn't seem in 2004 that he could, that he was thinking a lot about 2008. And I mean, we know that very quickly, I mean, within months, if that's true, then within months, the tactic became quite the opposite.
Right.
That he got on Air Force One and fully embraced
well, of course,
George Bush.
that's
so,
true. That's true.
I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter because.
Well, where you're wrong is that in 2004 he wasn't thinking about 2008. But because he was. But the point is, I mean, you're probably right that it didn't factor into that calculus.
Yeah, and either way, it doesn't really matter trying to figure out what he genuinely thinks because he has made that impossible.
Yeah.
And by the way, the other people we talked to were Joe Biden.
And he picked?
The Carpe Diem.
Dead
Poets Society.
Dead Poets Society.
I mean, he picked the most. He picked the most recent movie, and Shot in Delaware, which was largely.
Of course. That's why he
picked
picked it. Probably the only movie he saw. He probably only saw Delaware movies.
And I'm trying to remember the other Democrat who he picked was a senator from North Carolina named John Edwards.
Right. Fatal Attraction.
Right, exactly, yeah. Right, he picked Deep Throat.
Yeah, exactly. Right, she's having my baby.
Right, Last Tango in Paris.
She's having my baby was great.
That was good, yeah, that's right.
In any case, go ahead. You were saying, John.
I think he picked Dr. Strangelove and.
Well, that's appropriate.
Yeah, that's right. And good point. And he clearly hadn't seen it. And clearly, all the information from it came from Elizabeth, and there was all this. I've mentioned this before on the show, and before we shot, he hadn't done any prep work either, and he was getting clearly talked to before about things to say, and he talked about, I remember when I was in school and we did the duck and cover and hid under our desks with the threat of nuclear annihilation imminent. I don't believe he ever did any of that. And I'm not kidding. There was a sense among.
You didn't believe it then.
A sense among everybody there. They were like, "What is this guy? Is so inauthentic." And then the disappointing part for me is that then by 2008, I was like, he's learned his lesson, and I bought back into it, and that was obviously foolish on my part. He was so disingenuous then. Again, I don't think he's seen the movie, and then he just made stuff up that he had gone through in order to. But that's pretty good to get sort of Biden, Edwards, and McCain in 2004.
No, I mean, it's just unbelievable that the foresight of the people at Turner Classic Movies to do that.
And Orrin Hatch.
And Orrin Hatch, that's right. And that what was his favorite movie?
To Kill a Mockingbird, because he'd been a small-town lawyer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And had seen a black person once.
Right, once encountered a black person on a plane.
But back to the issue here. These 1,200 troops, by the way, it's basically the correct answer. I don't know the numbers. I don't know the dollars. It's the correct answer to an immigration problem, not what's going on in Arizona. So, I mean, in terms of taking a public action, the president is doing what is largely a more right thing. I mean, if you have a problem with your border, you go down to your border. You don't go into a city and profile someone and see if they're there properly.
Well, obviously, Michael, you're talking about the Support Our Law Enforcement and Safe Neighborhoods Act. That is Arizona SB 1070.
Support Our Law Enforcement. And what's the other one?
Support Our Law Enforcement and Safe Neighborhoods Act. It seems like people are leaving out the title of the bill all the time. It's such a great title.
Are you talking about Solesna?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know why people are talking about it as if there's some sort of, if there's some sort of racial profiling involved. It's just supporting law enforcement, making neighborhoods safe.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, typical liberal Jewish-controlled media. Anyway, Russell Pierce is a state senator from Arizona, and who believes in the rule of law and says we're a nation of laws. That was like when people
martial laws.
Yeah, that's right. And he believes that we're having this problem of illegal invasion. Invaders, that's what they are, invaders on the American sovereignty. Only conservatives talk about sovereignty.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, so he was a sponsor of Arizona SB 1070, and there's no other way once we finish telling you about this guy, and he was in the headlines in 2006.
He's a descendant of an invader, I'm guessing, too.
No. He's native born.
He is.
He's sprung up.
Cree or Cherokee?
Yeah, he's sprung up from Christ.
Right.
Yeah, his family did in probably Tennessee.
Right.
Anyway, he was on Bill O'Reilly, and we're going to bring you that clip, Michael, when we come back, and everybody listening will, at the end of the clip, have the remarkable feeling of, wow, good for Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah,
or not so much good.
It's unusual that you have that.
Not so much good for, but
Well done, Bill.
not even well done. But I mean, like even Bill O'Reilly doesn't know what to do with this clown. Yeah. So we'll hear from Russell Pierce, and then a good CNN piece actually, which frames the Arizona, not so much this bill, but this other nonsense proposal to go after teachers with accents in Arizona. I guess we'll do all that when we come back, young Turks.
Back like it's going out of style. Shake just a little bit faster.
The Rolling Stones?
It's not. I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that that's John Legend. Is that right? Look at that. Pretty
Wow.
good. Yeah, we're back here talking about Arizona. Michael Shore, Ben Mankiewicz, talking about some pretty inflammatory things said today on television, on the radio, and in front of real people. And we're going to listen now to, is it Arizona State Senator Russell Pierce?
Yeah, let's, yeah.
On Bill O'Reilly?
Yeah, I guess this was yesterday on O'Reilly's TV show. Let's give a little background, though, on Russ. He was a state rep before he was a state senator. Everybody knows that. He's from Mesa.
Right. Mesa is a town with a Spanish name. It means table.
Yeah, he's working to change. He's from Table, Arizona.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And don't call it Table, Arizona.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah.
So Russell Pierce.
Dry area, by the way, Arizona.
Right, exactly, yeah. Nice. So Russ Pierce from Table, back in 2006, reading here from the Arizona Republic, he sent an email to supporters where he copied an article from a group called, let's see what that doesn't matter. It's a group called the National Alliance, and the title was "Who Rules America?" This piece from the Alien Alliance.
And when was this?
2006 that he sent this out. And the alien, Who Rules America, that was just the partial title. Who Rules America? The alien grip on our news and entertainment media must be broken.
Aliens.
By the way, the alien grip on our news and Who Rules America? The alien grip on our news and entertainment media must be broken. Not a great title.
No, it's not a great title. Alien, of course, it's the Mesa word for Jew.
Right, there you go. Well, he manages to bring, so there's an immigration problem that they're aware of and that they're concerned about here in Arizona. And like all good racists, right. They inexplicably bring Jews in.
Right. That's true, yeah.
I mean, here's what Arizona doesn't have.
Yeah.
A Jewish problem.
Right.
Anyway, so here's...
But by the way, they have a Canadian problem because so many Canadians live in Arizona. Snowbirds go down there and have repatriated actually into or expatriated into
sure,
Arizona.
Michael, they're just as angry about that.
I'm sure they're angry at the Canadians. Yeah.
So the alien grip on our news and entertainment media has to be broken. The article criticized the media for promoting multiculturalism and racial equality, and for portraying, quote, any racially conscious white person, inexplicably capitalized white person, as a bigot for presenting the Jewish Holocaust as fact. The Jewish Holocaust as fact. If you're a racially conscious white person, you're a bigot, and also for presenting the Jewish Holocaust as fact. The media presents a single view of the world, a world in which every voice proclaims the equality of the races, the inherent nature of the Jewish Holocaust tale, the wickedness of attempting to halt the flood of non-white aliens pouring across our borders, the dangers of permitting citizens to keep and bear arms, the moral equivalence of all sexual orientations, and desirability of a pluralistic, cosmopolitan society rather than a homogeneous, white, capitalized one. All right, so he puts this out, and then he apologizes and says, I'm sorry that I pasted it onto an email. I didn't read the whole article. I don't know, like, I only read the part about the racially conscious white person, and then I thought, the rest of it seems probably great. I only read the part about the Jewish Holocaust as fact. Now that's a problem.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, this is clearly good stuff.
Right. Keep going.
Go ahead, copy. toothpaste. The article from the Alliance's website was based on was pasted on the bottom of an email Pierce sent to supporters slamming the Arizona Republic for its articles about his comments on the radio last month about a 1950s federal deportation program called, unfortunately, Operation Wetback. That was an actual program we ran in the 50s, which obviously Russell Pierce thought was awesome.
It was great.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so that's a little background on Russell Pierce. I really think that he says that, ugly words, I disavow them completely. My heart is dark. That's true, and I'm unable to get him to see what I don't know. Anyway, this is he's apologizing.
He's apologizing.
He apologized, said he shouldn't have sent it. He didn't read the whole article. It's my favorite part.
Yeah.
Anyway, then he appears on Bill O'Reilly.
What's he going to do about the fact that he has a dark heart?
Yeah, exactly. So he'll get beyond it, I'm sure. It's a dark heart, but it is encased in
white.
In a white light.
Yeah, okay.
In a beautiful white
Right,
light.
yeah.
So he's on O'Reilly's TV show yesterday on the Fox network, and he's busy.
That's who's carrying O'Reilly
right now, yeah. And he talks about how the 14th Amendment doesn't apply to children of Mexicans.
Right.
So they shouldn't be citizens just because they're born in the United States. And his legal reasoning, as you'll hear, very sound. He sounds, and I don't know what his deal is, and perhaps he's had some sort of illness, and if that's the case, I apologize ahead of time. But he sounds like he spent a good part of the day at a Mesa bar.
Okay, let's listen to him. Let's listen. This is State Senator Russell Pierce of Arizona.
Federal law says any baby born in the United States under any circumstance is a U.S. citizen, and you want the state of Arizona to override that law?
First of all, that's not the law. It's an unconstitutional declaration of citizenship to those born. In the Wong Kim decision before the Supreme Court, it made it very clear. And the statements from the senators at the time when the 14th Amendment was written made it clear. It did not pertain to aliens or those who did not have legal domicile in the United States. It's the most irrational and self-defeating provision you could have.
What do you want to do?
Stop it, exactly. I want to bring a little common sense and integrity back. It's illegal to enter the United States, and yet we're going to create the greatest inducement to breaking your law enter illegally, and that's make your baby a citizen. Had to do with domicile. No other country does this. The 14th Amendment doesn't do this.
But what do
it's
you
an
want to
unconstitutional
do?
declaration. The law will say that we'll recognize the birth. We will not recognize that birth as a citizen entitled to the welfare state.
So in Arizona,
the programs of this state.
In Arizona, the baby won't be an American, but in the 49 other states, it will be.
Well, I'm hoping that they'll catch on, just like they are with my bill 1070. Right. I'm hoping the rest of the government will catch on. He restores some integrity and some common sense to this country. Enough is enough.
63 bottles of beer on the wall.
We'll recognize the birth.
Right.
All right. Great.
Well,
thank you.
No, but, for him, that's probably a concession.
Right. Exactly.
But what's amazing is I would love to get these people to say, okay, we will try your bill, but we're going to exclude Mexicans. But I think your bill is a great idea.
Right.
So we're going to get like those Bulgarians who just kind of never went back on their tourist visa, and we're going to get some of those Brits who came over here as summer camp counselors and never left. But
and to say nothing of the previously mentioned Habs.
Yeah, exactly,
right.
exactly. Yeah. Those Canadians. So we like your idea, Senator, but let's just not do it with Mexicans for a while.
It's a little touchy right now with the Mexicans. It's a hot issue
exactly,
right now.
Yeah. See if he adopts it then.
And look, before anyone, not that you would, accuses us of just playing a soundbite from some, crackpot.
Yeah.
Again, this is the sponsor of the Support Our Law Enforcement and Safe Neighborhoods Act.
Yeah.
I mean, there is
Selesna.
This is the sponsor of Selesna, the sort of most relevant piece of social legislation of the year.
Yeah, and he mentioned it there. I mean, that 1070 bill. So he's saying that he's hoping other states will adopt this in the same way as they have 1070.
They're also he's also sponsored 1097, which has apparently had the effect of some in Arizona believe of going after teachers with accents.
Yeah.
And he'll explain to O'Reilly in clip 5 here why you want to go after those teachers with accents.
Spanish accents in the classroom. Teachers speak. I had a teacher in high school, Dr. Tu, Spanish accent, very brilliant teacher. What are you going to do with Spanish accents?
Well, there's a proposal by our superintendent of public instruction. I agree. It's not just Spanish accent. Let's get it straight. These are folks who are illiterate on the English language, teaching our children.
Well, they should have certificates. How do they get a certificate to teach in Arizona if they're illiterate? How do they do that?
It's a good question.
They're illiterate.
Okay, well, there's one thing here, is that if Bill O'Reilly had a teacher with an accent, maybe there is a reason not to let teachers.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And, you know, this is absurd. It's ridiculous. First of all, I challenged that they were illiterate. I challenge that we are giving teaching certificates to anybody who is illiterate.
I don't even think we should. I think we're entering into a false. It's a false choice. We shouldn't even be debating it. They're not illiterate.
Yeah. Okay. We're not debating it. I was just saying that I wanted to be on the record as saying that I don't believe him here.
Yeah, I don't believe him in anything he says. He thinks that the Holocaust is false, and he's a Jew hater.
Yeah, the Jewish Holocaust is false.
I'm sorry, you're right. The other Holocausts, he's down with them, as far as we know.
Right.
So he mentions that that bill is actually supported by the superintendent of.
Not supported. It's actually his bill. Yeah.
But he is in cahoots. I believe that a guy named Tom Horn, is that right? It's the superintendent of the Arizona schools.
And I don't know that he could even have a bill. He's a superintendent of schools.
Yeah, I don't think
he doesn't. You have to be in the House or in the Senate in Arizona to have a bill.
No, I think anybody in Arizona would come and propose a bill.
Right.
And then the legislature votes on it instantly.
Right. It's his bill.
I think any super can bring in a bill.
Just superintendent of your building.
Yeah, Schneider has proposed a couple of bills in Arizona. This is a CNN piece from Thelma Gutierrez. JR, can you keep our guys keep our mics open for this, because we may well speak freely during this piece. This is a piece from Thelma Gutierrez, who probably, as I said, she ought to go.
Yeah, this is her
First
last
of all,
piece.
good luck understanding this piece.
Right.
With her heavy accent.
That's a good point. The illiterate reporter. And good luck if she's doing a piece in Arizona. She's probably, distracted because she's looking for her ID.
Right. So that's a good point. So she does this story, and take note as you listen to the teacher who says that she's had people come into her classroom to essentially audit her and listen to whether she's appropriate enough. And see if you can understand what this teacher is saying with her heavy, heavy accent. All right, here's the piece.
Some teachers, like Christina Parsons in Tucson, believe they're being targeted by the Arizona Department of Education because they have accents. A state monitor came into your class.
Yes.
They audited you.
Yes. They just walked in the middle of class.
Parsons, who
Get
was
some
born
subtitles.
in Brazil,
Stop it right there.
We have some subtitles.
Yeah. What did she say?
I have no idea.
Something about class. I heard the end of it. I heard class.
Well, that wasn't in America. Where was that shot?
I don't know. I don't know, but I couldn't understand a word she said. All right, keep going.
ELL, English language learners for more than 20 years. She has 2 university degrees. This is the first time she's been audited, and she resents the extra scrutiny.
You could have a PhD and be a bad teacher.
State School Superintendent Tom Horn says as part of No Child Left Behind, he's been monitoring ELL teachers for bad grammar and mispronounced words for the past 8 years. Are you going after one particular accent?
We're not going after any accents, including Spanish accents. It has to be faulty English. If students are being taught English and they're going to refer to a comma as a comma, people are going to misunderstand them.
English professor Roseanne Gonzalez disagrees, saying studies actually show that non-native speakers make better English teachers. Are you saying that a teacher's pronunciation of specific words is not important?
That's right, because language is very contextual. We depend on the context to understand what words mean.
You would tell somebody who could not be understood that they need to go into another profession.
Horn's critics say he's going after immigrant teachers.
It's totally idiotic. I grew up in a house where my parents spoke Polish, and they certainly spoke English with a heavy accent.
But here you are, superintendent.
Right.
So it didn't hurt you.
No, but my teachers spoke proficient English.
That was really great.
Yeah, Thelma Gutierrez, good work there. I love.
By the way,
that.
Tom Horn spells horn H-O-R-N-E.
Yeah,
So
but as you said, he's going after the anybody, Bulgarian teachers.
Anybody? No. You had somebody with an English accent in there. It would be great to actually to put a teacher with an English accent in a school there who spoke, improperly, and see if they sort of audited him and kicked that teacher out.
Oh yeah, right. Right.
A white person, right? We don't. Let's go. I ain't going to do this anymore. Know, it's just like, well, all right.
Yeah. Bollocks. I say this, and it's just me. It doesn't. What happened to me is not an example of what happened to other kids. But I took a lot of. You speak Spanish fluently. I don't, but I took a lot of Spanish. And what I got mostly out of the, whatever it was, 7 or 8 years, I certainly didn't get speaking Spanish out of it. But what I got primarily out of taking all that Spanish was...
C's?
Yeah. I learned English grammar. That taught me
sentence
objects,
structure and
indirect objects, certainly the conditional tense. And, I all of it learned from Spanish. Rather than English grammar.
But that also, while a heartwarming and lovely story, this is about people learning English from people who are speaking English and seemingly speaking it properly. And it's about this guy, this Tom Horn, who is, just an ass going after people because he's a racist. This is racism in
its purest form, and its most dangerous form because he's in charge of children. And isn't it sort of, and again, this is ridiculous, but isn't it important, if it's so frickin' important to these guys to teach kids English? And I think we all agree with that.
Yeah.
It is, because we want these kids to succeed. Shouldn't someone who also speaks their language teach them English? Yeah. So that when they get stuff wrong, you can explain it to them?
No, that's exactly right, yeah.
What's wrong with, how not obvious is that? If your goal is to teach these kids to succeed, so that they continue on, so that they finish high school, so that they hopefully go to college, so they get jobs, and they work in the economy, and they spend money, and they keep things growing, so that we don't get stagnant, and we don't have Arizona with a bunch of kids who drop out of school at 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. They need to speak English, and we need to do whatever it is to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, and I, make sure they're saying coma when they mean coma.
Yeah.
But really, it goes back to, you can look back at Little Rock. You can look back at the excuses that were given. When they didn't want to integrate the schools, the line that they were using had nothing to do with being racist. It was they didn't think it was a good idea because it would lead to interracial dating. And it was about the sort of the communion of two different people of two different colors. And what they're talking about here is the English language being, that we should not have. That is exactly racism cloaked in another argument. This is just hate and racism. It's xenophobia, it's fear, and it's a way of appealing to the lowest common denominator. That's what's happening in Arizona right now. And I think it's great to see these people because they look more and more foolish and more like throwbacks. And boy, I would love to have met Tom Horn's Polish accented parents.
That was a great move.
That was a great move, and told them what their son is up to right now.
It's the 21st century, and I got news for the people of Arizona who may support this nonsense. You're on the border with Mexico, and that border is made up. The land doesn't know where the border is. And the borders are largely getting erased, and we have free trade, and you're fighting a losing battle, and you can't win it. So get on board and teach these kids English properly, and while you're at it, jackasses, learn Spanish. That'll help you. It'll help everybody. When we come back, Hitler, gay.
Yeah, well, always thought he was.
Young Turks.
I'm your boogeyman. That's what I am.
Young Turks, everybody. Ben and Michael with you. He said quite enough for the time being in terms of national press coverage. That is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell on his fellow Kentuckian Rand Paul.
And Rand Paul, it should be noted, beat McConnell's candidate there, and so it's there's been a real divide between McConnell and Paul.
I think it's good.
No, and so McConnell right now has a little bit of egg on his face in Kentucky, and there's going to have to be some way of getting the Paul campaign to, or to get McConnell himself to embrace the Paul campaign. Otherwise, without McConnell's help and without listening to McConnell, who's won there for centuries now, the Paul campaign's going to be in a little more trouble than it thinks.
Well, Mitch McConnell, has not won as easily as one would assume that he has. He won with less than 53% of the vote last time. He's had one landslide election of his 3, I guess.
But
or
he's
maybe
been
4.
there for quite a while. He is the establishment of Kentucky
no
politics
question.
right now.
But I mean, he's actually not unbeatable, and a Democrat is not. It's not unthinkable that a Democrat.
Nobody's unbeatable now. So
yeah, right. But anyway, so I don't know whether it was Mitch McConnell, but as Cenk and I were speaking last week on the show, it seems pretty clear when Paul canceled that Meet the Press appearance and canceled pretty much everything that the word came down from Washington, probably from John Cornyn, who's trying to win the Senate back for Republicans, that for the love of God, shut it. And here's who you need to talk to now, professionals. They had this sort of insurgent Tea Party movement that elevated him past Trey Grayson, right? That's the fellow's name, McConnell's handpicked candidate there in Kentucky. And but my hunch is there were not a lot of seasoned political operatives there in the Rand Paul campaign, and that enabled Paul to sort of spout off on the national stage.
Yeah, those campaigns, though, sorry to interrupt you, those campaigns tend to stay that course, that they, especially one like Rand Paul. So I agree with you. It has to have come from on high in some way. I mean, you have the Republican senatorial election committee, campaign committee, saying to him, look, we're not going to give you money. We're not going to give you, if you're going to go out and make a fool of yourself, we're going to waste our money or spend our money on another candidate in another state. So
yeah, I wonder whether it has, I mean, look, I don't know. I doubt it has that kind of threat rather than, hey, look, this is, you've entered the big time and we're not making you fire anybody, but look, this is, Jack Conway has won a statewide office. He's the Attorney General and the Democratic nominee, and he can beat you. And this is yours to lose. But this is serious business. You won this essentially with a real sort of grassroots effort. But the Democrats have more money in these Senate campaigns than Republicans. You have opened up the possibility all of a sudden for Democrats to say, "Hey, let's spend some money in Kentucky."
Here, yeah.
And you gotta, we're not going to change who you are, we're not going to, but we need some guys to go down there who know what they're doing. You get to say you have to be you, but we need some professionals down there.
I don't disagree. I just think that they're going to find that these types of campaigns generally have more pushback, especially the Paul type of campaign. I mean, if it's anything like his father's, if it's anything like the Tea Parties, they don't care for anything that Washington has to say. But it's hard to disagree with the fact that he did pull himself off those shows, and I think that it was because he had heard people saying it was a bad idea.
Yeah, I wonder whether there was even and I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if, his father, this guy has a chance to have far more success than his father did.
Yeah.
I mean, his father was is his father still in the House? No.
Yes, he is in the House. He's a doctor.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know that.
I mean, obviously I'm sure he's talked to his dad, but I wouldn't be surprised if his dad was like, hey, son, just shush, these guys are not, they're not all clowns. They do know how to run some campaigns, and you can win. And look, we know he withdrew. And anyway, Mitch McConnell said John King asked him if McConnell had convinced Paul not to show up on Meet the Press this Sunday to go dark for a little bit. And McConnell responded that he would advise. Obviously, they're not going to admit that they were in controlling the campaign like that. Responded he would advise Paul spend more time talking to Kentucky voters and less time to the national media. So anyway, we'll. But McConnell saying that, look, polls came out after the primary, 25-point lead. That was before all this happened. And McConnell saying a very good position to put this Senate race in Kentucky in Republican hands, which, of course, it already is.
Yeah.
So Some news with the oil spill today?
Yeah, basically what they're doing is they're doing this top kill. BP has come in with a plan to actually take I guess it's a heavier, more viscous fluid and sort of force it down into where the oil's leaking, from where the oil's leaking. Sorry, I went to school in Arizona. And then after that, once they have tamped that down and once they have stopped the flow with that heavier liquid, to then just go right in and fill it with, I don't know, some sort of concrete or cement or whatever they fill it with under the sea, and that will give them a chance to do the repairs and stop the flow. BP is saying that it should take a couple of days to get that done. The governor of Louisiana, Bobby Jindal, is saying it should be done now. It should be done tonight. We should know tonight. And all of a sudden, Bobby Jindal's an expert, but that's what they're saying. And so BP is, it's hard to defend BP at all. I don't believe, though, that they have ever stopped trying to fix this. And this is the latest and seemingly the most plausible for the moment short-term fix.
Hard to know how, I mean, yes, I assume they've been trying to fix it. Their level of deceit right from the start was so extreme. Their level of minimizing its impact was so extreme. The fact that they haven't fixed it, the fact that they tried to deflect blame.
Oh, for sure. No. I'm not at all defending them. I do believe that once this happened, they have taken an all the king's horses and all the king's men thing here, and they're trying to figure it out. I don't think that they want it. It's terrible for them too. I mean, if we look at it just perfectly selfishly, it's terrible for them. So they want to fix this.
They have a self-interest in it, but their first attempt was to blame other people.
Of course.
So I don't, and probably, and then to worry about whether they were. I mean, look, and then didn't take the basic safety regulations that needed to be taken beforehand.
No, this is a disaster for them, and they are incredible. It's completely reprehensible. It's, I think, all in their hands. Certainly, the handling it afterwards, what happened beforehand, whatever the contractors did, that's a whole other story too. But they skirted all kinds of regulations. All I'm saying is, since it happened, I'm sure they've tried to stop this thing.
I have,
I think this seems to be, to a layperson, certainly the most sort of logical thinking. To me, it sounds sort of workable. They have this fluid; they can stop the flow because it's heavier than the water, it's heavier than the oil that's coming through. You put it in there, and hopefully it stops the flow. Then you fill that hole.
I don't know what I'm talking about. BP will not be the people who solve this. That is my belief. That others will have to come in, and
well, this may be others that are coming in too. I don't think this is coming from BP. I feel like this
well,
science
I mean, it's
is
going to
probably
be.
coming
I mean,
from
and I wish
someplace
the
else.
administration would giddy up and have condemned BP harder and faster and more
Yeah, and
aggressively.
faster, especially.
And
And faster. It took forever.
I don't know how many times you have to lie before you you know what, here's what you have to do, and we're going to come in and we're going to hire the people to fix this, and you're paying for it, and that's it. You're paying for every dollar of it. And we're going to garnish your wages if you don't pay for it. All right, so as promised, American Family Association's Brian Fisher. The American Family Association is a clown organization of gay haters. I don't think I need to say it much more. They live their life to hate the gays. And I don't know what this guy was on. JR, do you know what his deal is?
It's their own little broadcast.
Oh, they have their own show. Everybody has their own show.
It's on the AFA network.
They promote traditional family values. I don't know what that means. They're not traditional. They promote hateful family values, and they focus primarily on the influence of television and other media on our society. This is Brian Fisher. Brian with a Y, the same Y you would find in gay. Here's Brian Fisher with his master's degree in history.
So Hitler himself was an active homosexual, and some people wonder, well, didn't the Nazis persecute homosexuals? And it is true they did. They persecuted effeminate homosexuals, but Hitler recruited around him homosexuals to make up his stormtroopers. They were his enforcers. They were his thugs. And Hitler discovered that he could not get straight soldiers to be savage and brutal and vicious enough to carry out his orders, but that homosexual soldiers basically had no limits, and the savagery and brutality they were willing to inflict on whoever Hitler sent them after. So he surrounded himself. Virtually all of the stormtroopers, the brown shirts, were male homosexuals.
Hard to know how to approach that other than I think it speaks for itself. By the way, Ernst Rohn, who was sort of Hitler's sort of leading thug, was murdered by Hitler on the night of the Long Knives, long before Hitler sort of the brutality. And I mean, here's who wasn't gay: Himmler, Goering.
Right, but Bruno was,
and also Hitler.
Yeah, Hitler was not gay.
All right, Michael, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for thanking me. Entertainment Hour with Anna.
And we're back Friday.
We're back Friday.